In 2024, Six Flags Great Adventure celebrated their 50th anniversary, a year that was supposed to be marked with park-wide enhancements, callbacks to their past, and of course, a brand new roller coaster. The attraction selected for the park would be a last-minute grab from a theme park in Vietnam that fell through. The ride in question would be the Flash Vertical Velocity, a Vekoma manufactured Super Boomerang, the only one in the Western Hemisphere and only the second one ever built. It would be the biggest modern Vekoma coaster built within the Six Flags chain, and give the US visitors a taste of what modern Vekoma can offer. The only problem is, it never should have gone here to begin with. The attraction would receive a late start in construction and would completely miss the original goal of opening in time for the park's 50th anniversary. It would eventually make its debut on opening day of 2025, directly following the closure of the world's tallest coaster, King Ka, and 7 other attractions in the park. The Flash would appear as their replacement, even though it was never intended to be so. On top of that, due to the nature of the attraction, it operates with just one train. Six Flags Great Adventure is located directly between New York City and Philadelphia, in a state home to over 9 million people. The park does big numbers and historically has built rides with vehicles that seat a lot of people, and can operate with typically 2, 3, or 4 trains at a time. Now, with 8 rides gone, there is a lack of attractions within Six Flags Great Adventure, and so guests are encouraged to go do their new attraction, which can only seat 24 people at a time. The theoretical hourly capacity is just over 600 people per hour. This is going to be my full in-depth review on the Flash Vertical Velocity, a genuinely fun attraction that unfortunately just misses the mark in more ways than one. And before we get into the ride's layout, capacity, theming, any of that, we gotta first start with placement. The attraction was built parallel to the front entrance on the right side of the park, in a space that was not occupied by anything else at the time. It was put there to be a complement to Cyborg Cyberspin, a flat ride that would be located adjacent to it. The irony is, by the time the Flash would open, the Cyborg would be gone, and the queue would be repurposed for the Flash. So that automatically makes this original concept art out of date. Now, the location of this ride kind of makes sense because it's put as a callback to the original Batman and Robin The Chiller, a pair of dueling shuttle coasters that used to be in this section of the park. And long before that, you had Lightning Loops, 2 more shuttle coasters. So Six Flags Great Adventure does have a history with shuttle coasters, but historically there have always been 2 tracks, therefore the more limited capacity isn't so bad. The other big reason that this location does make sense is because the ride has been given a DC theme, with of course the Flash being your central character, and this is the DC Universe section of the park. So you also have Justice League Battle for Metropolis, Wonder Woman Lasso of Truth, the Dark Knight coaster, Batman the Ride. It helps flesh out this area that even 10 years prior was very lackluster. So now this is one of the most complete sections of Six Flags Great Adventure. And especially now with so many attractions missing, it's nice that there's at least one area that feels complete. The Flash dons yellow track with red supports to fit the theme of the character, but unfortunately that's pretty much where that theming stops. The overall presentation and dressing up of this attraction was very poorly done. To me, this is the epitome of a Six Flags coaster. It's this big ride plopped down with no theming, and frankly is the type of ride that you would reference when making fun of poorly themed coasters. It's like Pantheon level bad. The decor consists of a couple shipping crates, a few generic signs, some of which were literally falling apart on opening day, and a big warehouse meant to do nothing else but hold a lot of people. That building in particular feels like there should have been some sort of pre-show, but for one reason or another, it didn't happen, which kind of blows my mind because, again, this ride was delayed a year, so I don't think that time could really be used as an excuse. The only theming that I thought was actually quite a nice touch is the audio in the area discussing the experiment that will be taking place, which is the goal of breaking through the Speed Force. That is your story, if you will. There's really not much to it. Even other attractions within the chain have had, like, statues of their big characters. And now in that empty plot of land where Cyborg used to be, there's like a stage where you would think there'd be some sort of statue or there could be meet and greets, but instead it is just completely empty. I was really disappointed when I saw this queue. It felt very rushed, like clearly the original plan was that Cyborg would remain open and Cyborg's queue would be for Cyborg, and that big warehouse would be where most of Flash's line would be, but instead they just decided to combine them completely. And in a post-merger world, what seems like management has realized that appearance matters, it felt like all of that went out the window for the Flash. It is bare bones, the bare minimum. And I feel like that is what we've been trying to steer away from the past couple of years. This tacky carelessness isn't good. You're slapping the name of Flash onto an attraction that if you were to remove the IP, you'd realize it has absolutely nothing to do with the Flash. Nothing about this is story-driven, and when you contrast that to Rapterra, which opened just a week prior at King's Dominion, we were walking around that ride saying, wow, they are doing everything right. You could see how much time, energy, and passion was put into immersing guests in that area, and that cannot be said for the Flash Vertical Velocity. Now, there is a silver lining in all this, and that is that the trains for the Flash are beautiful. They are perfect for embodying the character with that Flash logo, the LED lights on the side, and onboard audio. Now, unfortunately, during my experiences, I did not get to ride the Flash with the audio, but I did get to hear the soundtrack from off the ride briefly, and I was pretty impressed. It was like an upbeat EDM, and it fit the vibe of the attraction. I hope that it works consistently, but historically, details like this don't tend to last. Bizarro is a great example of another Six Flags Great Adventure attraction that used to have onboard audio, and lo and behold, it got taken off. So I wouldn't be surprised if long-term the Flash ends up operating without the onboard audio, but I would love to be proven wrong. Now, before you board the ride, it is important to note that they do have a loose article policy featuring lockers partway through the queue so that you can put your items in there so you don't bring them up to the station. There are no metal detectors, so it's not as strict as other attractions have been, like King Ka or El Toro. Unfortunately, there's a lot of queue after the lockers, so if you put your phone in there and then the line is backed up, you might be standing around for a good hour or so without them, which kind of defeats the purpose of having lockers like right before you board. From a layout perspective, you start off with the floor dropping and an acceleration straight ahead towards this big stall. You don't make it up very high, but that first launch still has some kick to it. You roll backwards, hit a boost in the station, and rise up a 172-foot tall spike. Obviously, not all of the train will reach that highest point, but when you're in the back row, you do feel surprisingly high up. From an off-ride perspective, visually it looks like the train should be going higher up the spike, but when you're actually on it, it doesn't feel that way at all. But it was an interesting contrast to Georgia Gold Rusher, which also opened in 2025, which is a ride where the vehicle goes right to the edge of the track, and the Flash has plenty of room at the top. You'll stall out there, get some floater airtime before plunging vertically back towards the station and then reaching your max speed of 59 miles per hour so that you can make it up into this stall. And depending on how the Flash is running, it'll be going a bit slower when it's cold out. We timed it. You're getting about 7 seconds of hang time on this first element. And remember, because this is a shuttle coaster, you'll go through that twice, meaning you'll get 14 seconds of sustained hang time on the Flash Vertical Velocity, which might be some sort of record. A lot of stalls, you go through them rather quick, and you hit just like perfect 0G. This is distinctly hang time, and frankly, it might not be the most pleasant sensation for some people. Like, the blood is probably going to rush to your head. It does not feel the same as that brief stall on Jersey Devil. There, you're in and out. So I was quite surprised by this moment. As you twist out of it, you'll hit a boost into a double up. This is floater airtime. The first step up is the best. I prefer that moment in the front row. I just feel like it hits better. And you need that LSM boost leading up to this moment because you stall up there briefly before twisting down to the ground. This is the most forceful part of the ride. We've nicknamed this the earlobe because from this angle, well, it kind of looks like an ear. But when I say this is forceful, don't confuse that with being intense. I don't think intense is the right word to describe the Flash Vertical Velocity. I think I was expecting it to be more intense than it actually was. I had done a lot of these high-thrill modern Vekoma coasters over in Europe, and some of them pull some good forces, and the Flash felt milder compared to those. The bottomless earlobe sends you into one more boost section, and that is so you can enter a corkscrew and then rise up into your second spike. Obviously, if you're in the front row, you will be at the highest point on this spike. From the back, you're barely on it. You stall out there for a brief moment before dropping back down and then going through the whole thing again backwards. You don't have quite as much speed going into the backwards corkscrew. Re-entering that earlobe is very weird, and the train really slows down there at the top, and then you just slowly drop down what was previously a double up, and the best moment of airtime going backwards. The front row especially really makes you feel that. When you're in the back, the double down backwards honestly doesn't really do a whole lot. It's a different sensation because when you're going through it forwards, you have a lot more speed because you just came off of a launch. Backwards, you're just slowly dropping down from that high point, which is why I recommend the front row for this coaster. Because by the time you hit that second drop, you have more speed, you're going to get more airtime. The front also has what would be the most hang time going backwards through that stall. You're up there for what feels like forever, but then you eventually drop back down through the station and then slow to a stop, returning to home. The Vekoma Super Boomerang is an odd layout. It's very unnatural, as in none of these elements would be possible without those boosts. So the train is constantly accelerating from high up to higher up. Normally, elements get smaller as the layout progresses. So that makes this a very unique sensation, especially since it doesn't really have any right or left turns. The closest you get is that dive drop, but I still wouldn't really call that like a right turn. I did many rides on the Flash back to back during their media previews, and it was interesting talking to people after multiple rides. Some people actually got a little nauseous after doing it a couple times. This might be one of those attractions that's better off like doing it in increments. But still fun. I'm not going to pretend like this is the most mind-blowing attraction. When I compare it to other modern Vekoma thrill coasters I've done, this would probably be the weakest. I prefer other sit-down Vekomas like Let Coaster, Phoenix, Abyssus. I just think they have more to offer. But let's get to the elephant in the room here. Was the Flash Vertical Velocity the right fit for Six Flags Great Adventure? I'm going to cut to the chase. No, it was not. I believed they picked the wrong park to place this ride in. I think it's great that Six Flags had an opportunity to snatch up this coaster, but I believe it should have gone somewhere else in the chain. And here's why. Vekoma claims that the Super Boomerang has a theoretical capacity of 800 people per hour, but Great Adventure, who is the one operating it, consistently has it at around 600 people per hour. Compare that to other attractions in the park like El Toro, which has over 1,000 people per hour, most of the B&M coasters, which are at least 800 people per hour. The only attraction that has a similar capacity is going to be the Joker, an S&S 4D free spin, which frankly is a ride that most people are going to do once, and maybe not even every visit. The Flash is designed to be a ride that people will want to do more than once, and will want to do every visit. There is a much higher demand, and I witnessed that first case on opening day. Granted, I know that is not going to be the best representation because by far the most people came out to do it on opening day, but you can still imagine my shock when I waited over 3 hours to experience this. I met people that waited 5 or 6 hours to do the Flash. Now, the one caveat to that is that there were several breakdowns which did add to the wait time. From what I understand, it has been more reliable. I believe it's been averaging around an hour wait as of the past couple weekends. From my understanding, the best time to do this is at the end of the night. That's when the least amount of people are back there, so if you don't want to wait long for this, that might be the best time to do it. I do not believe that the Flash is worth a 3-hour wait. Frankly, I'm not even sure that's worth an hour line. At the moment, I would probably put the Flash as my 5th favorite attraction in the park. I'd rather ride Toro, Jersey Devil, Nitro, and Medusa. I just think each of them are more complete ride experiences, and that is not a dig at this ride specifically. I just kind of see it as a supporting ride at Six Flags Great Adventure, and if it went to another park, I think it could have been one of their standout additions. Because at the end of the day, the reason why Great Adventure received it is because they decided last minute to add a roller coaster for their 50th anniversary, which it never opened for. In an alternate reality, I think there is a world where Six Flags Great Adventure got a different roller coaster for 2025. That ride would be Siren's Curse at Cedar Point. Let me explain. The attraction was originally set for Energylandia. Six Flags bought it up to send to Six Flags Mexico, but the conditions weren't right, and so they had to find a location for it last minute. At the time, Six Flags Great Adventure was already working on the Flash. But had they sent it to a different park where it would have made more sense capacity-wise, they could have picked up a Vekoma tilt coaster for Six Flags Great Adventure, which would have been a perfect fit. Siren's Curse is opening the same year as the Flash Vertical Velocity, operates with 2 trains, has a theoretical capacity of around 1,000 people per hour, and is that wow ride, something that would work very well at Six Flags Great Adventure. It's very different from every other attraction in the park, and to me is that replacement for something like Green Lantern. It's pretty well known at this point that the closing of Kingda Ka was a last-minute decision, but Green Lantern, on the other hand, I believe was in the works for a bit. It's been rumored to be on the chopping block for a long time now, and a tilt coaster would have looked incredible in that spot. It would have been one of the first things you see when you enter the park, and so I like to think that in some alternate universe, Green Lantern gets that formal goodbye, closes around Labor Day weekend, gets bulldozed, and construction for a Vekoma tilt coaster starts shortly thereafter. I would also accept the back area by Medusa as an option, because that area also needs some help. And what better way to make up for all those lost attractions than the first Vekoma tilt coaster to open in the US? Meanwhile, Cedar Point got it, and it's located directly next to Valraven, a ride that has a very similar gimmick. And their reception of Siren's Curse is meant to be an apology because Top Thrill 2 was delayed a year. Oh no, you have to wait a year to ride your Stratocoaster. Six Flags Great Adventure took out their Stratocoaster. But I digress. It doesn't mean that a tilt coaster couldn't one day come to Six Flags Great Adventure, because both Cedar Fair and Six Flags prior to the merger were working with Vekoma. And if they like how Siren's Curse turns out, maybe one day we will see that in this park, because we won't be getting a dive coaster at Great Adventure now that Dorney has one. But even though I don't see Flash as a replacement for some of those closed rides, because it's coming at the time that it is, a lot of the public sees it that way. And I don't think that the current ride experience really delivers in that way, especially if the Kingda Ka replacement does end up being this mock shuttle coaster. Then Six Flags Great Adventure will have added 2 shuttle coasters back to back, and I don't think that is the right fit. I think there's also an alternate universe where maybe the ride received a turntable, but because the attraction was not originally intended in Vietnam to have a turntable, that would have been a very expensive change. One that would have cost the ride probably another year. We saw that with Aquaman Power Wave when they decided to add a turntable to that last minute. So I understand why they didn't do it. I think they should have sent it to a mid-sized Six Flags park. Frankly, the one it would have been best at is Six Flags America. I know that they wouldn't have done it there, but they don't have a swing launch coaster. They can handle the one train, and it would have helped revitalize that park. But oh well, the Flash is here. It's here to stay. Just try and be strategic when you go to ride it and have your expectations in place, because it is a good ride, but I wouldn't say it is exceptional. The airtime is fine at best. The hang time is definitely the star moment. So for the Flash's final score, I'm giving it a 6.5 out of 10. I would absolutely take it over an original Vekoma Boomerang, though those original Boomerangs were a lot more intense. I would say those attractions were about forcefulness, and so that makes this a fundamentally different experience. I can't help but feel a little disappointed with this attraction because, one, the thematics just aren't there. The capacity is very frustrating, and the actual ride itself left me a little underwhelmed. And that's why I see this as a supporting ride to Six Flags Great Adventure. It is fine for what it is. I still say come out and ride it. You can let me know down in the comments below what you think of it. Do you agree with the points that I brought up? Do you think there's anything I missed? Be sure to let me know. And of course, make sure to stay tuned for more here at Coaster Studios, and I'll see you next time.